I'm Caroline.
I'm Jana.
I'm Gwen.
I'm Anna.
Hello, I'm Michaela.
Alright. And I'm Cassidy. So, first I wanted to ask, can you imagine your beloved family pet being poked and prodded with needles and experimental drugs? No one wants to think about animal experimentation, but it's one of the things around us that we have the ability to change. Right now, millions of mice, rats, rabbits, primates, even cats and dogs, and other animals are locked inside of steel cages in laboratories across the country. They are in pain, they suffer from extreme stress, and they just want to be free. Unfortunately, these animals never make it back out of a lab once they are inside. And almost everyone has had a pet before, multiple ones at that. So it's extremely hard to imagine that about every pet that you could possibly own and love is being tested and experimented on. The amount of animals tested on every year may shock you. It is said from Animal Testing by McClellan, while it is difficult to be certain the exact number of animals used in research worldwide, the U.S. Department of Agriculture reported that in 2015, over 767,000 laboratory animals were used for researching, testing, and educational purposes. These statistics, however, do not include animals not protected by the 1966 Animal Welfare Act, a federal law that has been amended numerous times and regulated the treatments of animals in exhibition, research, and transport. So many rats, mice, and fish are not protected by this act, and it is impossible to know exactly how many animals are used for testing. So I wanted to show you these pictures, and this is just a few pictures that I wanted to post on here about what can happen in animal experimentation. And rabbits are pretty much a commonly known pet. And you may be asking, what could they possibly be putting in this rabbit's eye? And it says right here that this rabbit is one of the many victims of eye irritancy test. Once her injuries are recorded, she will be killed. And I wanted to include this image that I saw. I really find it disturbing at the fact that it's a cat. It could be a household cat. A lot of people have cats, and they're just drilling holes in its skull and putting these tests on him. So now how are you feeling about the moral and ethical situations about animal experimentation? Monami, the writer of Animal Experimentations, A Guide to the Issue, reads that philosophers such as Peter Singer challenges those who argue that there are fundamental differences in the moral status of human beings and non-humans, and that these differences entitle them to exploit non-humans from the benefit of humanity. So since animals, of course, aren't humans, they can't stand up for themselves, that they're going to be experimented on. However, William Russell and Rex Birch, authors of The Principles of Human Experimental Techniques, emphasize the need for the scientists to appraise their work based on the principles of the 3 R's. They recommend that research efforts be directed toward the ultimate replacement to appraise their work based on the principles with scientists of non-living alternatives at every opportunity. This was recognized as the ideal idea towards which the researchers should strive. In the absence of complete replacement, scientists were urged to reduce the number of experiments so that only those considered essential were performed. The number of animals used in such procedures should be reduced as far as possible, consistent with the requirements of statistical analysis. Finally, scientists were directed to refine experiments to minimize or eliminate completely any suffering involved. The bottom line is that we are different from animals. Dr. Richard Closser, former director of the U.S. National Cancer Institute, says, "We have cured mice from cancer for decades, but it simply did not work in human beings." Other examples of common human diseases that animals cannot naturally get are Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, diabetes, stroke, and AIDS. Scientists have been injecting animals with a formulated disease or virus. This process is similar to how doctors keep humans from getting a sickness like the flu by injecting them with this virus. One of the main arguments proponents use is that it helps alleviate the suffering of people through the medical advances made in testing labs. But that is not true. Many of its failures are actually negative on humans. Some drugs being used in animals may not even be safe for the use of humans and vice versa. Whether scientists would like to believe it or not, most animal experimentations are a failed attempt. Theodore Capaldo, president of the New England Anti-Vivisection Society, says, a 2004 study from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration found that 92% of drugs entering the clinical trials following animal testing failed to be approved. Of those approved, half were withdrawn or relabeled due to severe or lethal adverse effects not detected during the animal test. The article, The Failure in the Animal Model, reads, in one case, thalidomide was safe when tested on animals, but when used by soon-to-be mothers, led to the birth defect of over 10,000 children. We must spread awareness about the unethical animal experimentation, and instead of wasting animal lives, money, and failed experiments, we need to find more alternatives to animal testing, like Bloomberg's School of Public Health. They have been a contributor of alternative methods with the development of several in vitro methods that are being used. This means that they're being performed or taking place inside of a test tube, a culture dish, or elsewhere outside of a living organism. And this quote here reads, many animals are used in experiments because they are so like us. This makes them a good model for human conditions in biomedicine. But if these animals are so like us, why do we treat them so differently? So in conclusion, animals have always been coexisting with humans since the age of time. They are extremely important to us in several different ways. But one thing they shouldn't be is a lab experiment. It is unethical the way animals are being treated in tests for human use, especially when these tests are unreliable and we have alternatives and should be finding more. People use the excuse that animal testing keeps humans safe. Unfortunately, this isn't true. As long as experiments have been going on, we should know by our history that it isn't taking us where we should be.